Subscribe to 15 Second Spotlight on YouTube and to wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hi, welcome back to 15 Second Spotlight. I am your guest host, Dania Jimenez, and today we have Adam Perlis on the podcast. Adam has a very impressive design background and has taken those talents and moved into a connected industry, but something that might surprise you. So I'm going to let Adam go ahead and introduce himself today. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much, Dania. I really appreciate you having me. And I guess a little bit about myself. I am I guess you could say a designer turned recruiter to some extent. I prefer, I think, the term entrepreneur. But yeah, I'm now the CEO and founder of Academy, which is a UX staffing and recruiting agency. We specialize in the UX disciplines. Prior to that, I had a whole career as a designer. I'm still not far away from the work, still do a lot of it myself. But previously, I was the head of design at Time Magazine. I also was head of design and UX for a few agencies, AKQA, Be Real in New York, and I ran a creative lab for AT&T for a long time. Still love it, still passionate about it. Now I have a very different role.
Awesome. Yeah. And I've heard through the grapevine, you are like 15 seconds royalty. And I imagine in multiple iterations of your career, you've had some contact with the festival.
Yeah. I think it's been maybe 6 years that I've attended and
Amazing.
been either a speaker or a host for the festival. And it definitely has seen many phases of my career. And I could not be more grateful to the work that they've done there. They've put on one of the best conferences really in the world.
Well, we're happy to have you during this phase of 15 Seconds Fest and your phase of your career. And I think we can just dive into in some of our previous conversations, we had talked a little bit about the synergy between, and you had mentioned it yourself, even saying that you prefer the term entrepreneur. And I think that's a really creative thread to walk down, this drive within you to design your own life, design your own experiences in life, and then sort of how that trickles over to designing your business, right? Like applying design thinking to not just like a project with the client, but to different areas of your life. Would love to explore that with you.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely had thought a lot about that, when I was attending actually Web Summit as a speaker many years ago. And I went on this surf trip beforehand. It was, I'd never been surfing really before, maybe once in like
so
Hawaii
you decided
when
Portugal
I was a kid.
is the best place to try.
Well, they invited some of the speakers to apply to join this like pre-trip. It was like 2 to 3 days in Araceta, which was just still to this day one of the best trips I have ever taken.
Yeah.
And it was great because you got to meet all these other people who were going to attend the conference in advance and spend some time with them. And I got to know this guy, on the bus. And, I started to tell him a little bit about, myself and like what I wanted in my life and in my career. And he was like, oh, it sounds like you really want to design your life. And he was like, I wanted to design my life too. And like, that's what I've been doing for like the past few years. And I really admired his like philosophy and approach. And so I started to think about all the things that were like really important to me in my personal life and in my professional life, and started to write them down and think about active steps I could take to start achieving all of those goals. And, do I think they'll ever be done? Probably no, but there's always kind of something to strive towards. And I think that, some of the things we'll talk about today certainly were parts of that plan. And I'm eternally grateful to him for his advice. And actually, I'm going to be following him to a place that he decided to live, Mallorca, Spain. It's a place to live with, myself and my wife, and he moved his entire family there.
I love that. Yeah. And it's interesting, right? Because you had a lovely life, a beautiful career, but it was like sitting down with it a little bit more and to say, like, where can I fine tune? Where does it not fit? Where does it not feel right, right? Like there's something
Yeah.
a little bit not jiving here with what I see for myself in the future.
Totally. And, that's not to say that, my life wasn't fantastic before. It was. And I have nothing to complain about. It's more about, striving for better always. And I think if we can all do that for ourselves in some way, constant improvement to your life is just going to make you happier. And for me, there was a few things that I saw in, like, I guess I can start with my career. I had a really amazing career, a very successful one. I had reached, I think, one of the pinnacles of design, becoming a head of design of a pretty major company.
A legacy brand, truly.
Yeah. Yeah. And, one that had been around for 100 years. It was really amazing and impressive. And, and I started to get courted by a lot of very big firms. I interviewed with Google. I interviewed with Meta, a bunch of other really amazing companies. And around that same time, I was also contemplating, should I just start my own business? Because I had this itch. And there's
a lot of that, right? In our industry of like, oh, well, I know how to do this one thing so well, I guess I'll do it for myself, right? That seems like a natural step for an entrepreneur. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'd been doing a lot of these talks and getting a lot of attention as a result of it. And that came from companies, and that came from individuals who were interested in working with me. And it just got me thinking, you know what, maybe I should give a shot to like trying my own thing and seeing if I can do it. Because I've never tried before. And so, I left time. I gave myself a plan. I said, I got 6 months to see if I can figure this out. I saw an opportunity, to essentially build an agency that was deeply focused on doing the proper product design process. I felt like a lot of agencies were focused on winning awards at Cannes. I was like, no, like I want to win the hearts and minds of users. Like, let's build an agency that exclusively works in that way and does not make compromises for any clients. When I say compromises, I mean in the process, not skipping steps, which is kind of something, a lot of clients will notoriously do. They'll be like, oh, well, just skip the research. Like, just build it. We're paying
Just
you,
jump
right?
in. Yeah. We know where we're going, right?
Yeah. And we felt, I felt like that wasn't the right approach. So I was like, I'm going to give that a go. And we did that for 3.5 years. And it worked well, but, a lot of factors came into play. It was a hard business to sell because not everybody wanted to work that way. It was also at, right around the pandemic that, things were at the pinnacle for us. And then, of course, taking a huge drop off when a lot of the budgets started to go away. And then we decided to make a pivot in the business to focus more on staffing and recruiting services, which turned out to be a very viable and fantastic business with high margins and less risk. And so, I started to think about like my life and, making this move. And I was showing up to work, 9 to 6, 9 to 7. I'd get my job done. I had to deal with a lot of office politics. I wasn't able to make my schedule. I faced a lot of jealousy at times and backlash.
Lots of politics in agency life, certainly. Yeah.
Yeah. Or just corporate life in general.
Yeah.
And I really didn't like that. I also wanted to be able to work from anywhere. And so I decided, all right, well, how can I do that? Well, I got to become an entrepreneur. Even if I go and work at Google or wherever, I still won't get that freedom. So I'm going to try being an entrepreneur. So that's like was one of the many reasons I decided to like push that forward. And so I was able to get some of those goals I was thinking about before, right? I got that freedom to be able to choose when I work, how I work, like who I work with. I didn't have to answer to really anybody but my team. But I hired that team, and that's not to say I'm like the dictator over here, but at least I'm able to have like,
you curated, you designed.
The structured conversations and not the dictatorship I would have had to deal with at these corporates, right? And so, and then of course, like all the flexibility and also the earning potential. When you're an entrepreneur, your earning potential actually is exponential, right?
Yeah.
Like when you work in a company, you are capped, right? You're going to reach a threshold, and that is pretty much the end of that threshold,
Yeah, unless you have, and there are instances, right? And I think about it a lot as a spectrum because had a similar kind of journey in my own career. Is like you mentioned the tech companies, right? Like there's the traditional 9 to 5s, and then we saw this wave for like 15 years of like the tech companies gave you a little more freedom, right? And that felt kind of I worked at a PR agency, but one of our owners had sold a very successful tech company prior. So
Right.
10 years ago, I already didn't have to come into the office on Fridays. We had flex hours. Like there were these little nuggets of freedom that were kind of thrown at you
Right.
that then for some people is like, oh, I'm going to want that type of environment. I'm going to seek that in my next role. And for others, it's like, how far actually can I take this sort of freedom? And totally to your point, when you're working for yourself, you feel more driven to do these things, right? Because it's just you. There's no net underneath you. And then for you, you have employees now, right? Like you have other people who you think about when you're making decisions, which it sort of motivates you, right, to continue to pivot too, right? We've talked about the pivot
Yes.
in your career here is like you tried one thing out and it worked well, and then new inputs were introduced into the market, and you were able to make a turn here utilizing your skill set, right?
Yes,
I think that's really
exactly.
interesting, following your curiosity to like new things as they unfold.
Exactly. Yeah. And, I'd say the other part of this is, kind of designing the things that were important in my personal life. For me, I've been living in New York for over 15 years. My wife and I started to think about, even before starting my own business, think about, where do we want to live? Like, what are the things that are important to us? And, one of the biggest things was actually weather. We were like, we want to live in a warmer place.
Of
New York
course.
is really cold, pretty much like 75% of the year. And, we wanted to travel more. We wanted to have like a little more flexibility to be able to live and work in different places. And so we kind of explored the idea of becoming digital nomads. Before, it was like cool to be like super cool to be a digital nomad. And then, but we had never had the, like, we hadn't had that moment where we were able to say, we're definitely going to do this. Like we were working towards that, but it was definitely taking longer than we expected. We needed more financial security. We needed more security from a client perspective to understand, like, okay, this is going to be an okay thing to do. And, I'd say, that one of the positives of the pandemic was that it gave us cover to go do that. And so, about I think it was like a year and a half or so into the pandemic, we decided to, pack up all our stuff in New York and put it into a storage unit, get rid of our apartment and start traveling. And our first stop was California. It was the place we always kind of dreamed of, like, maybe settling down. We got to explore that to the fullest. We still love it. We visit there actually quite often. We also visited other places, like we lived in Puerto Rico on an island. And we were
Amazing.
like, oh, we actually like really love living like close to the water, and like island life like actually really suits us. I never thought of myself that way, but I'm like, this is kind of nice.
I mean, you're complimenting all the places I've grown up in. I've never lived outside of the state of California. My family's Cuban American. I'm like, yes, these are great, lively, lovely cultures. Yeah,
exactly. And that was the other thing is, my wife and I are very culturally driven people. She's from Turkey. I'm from the U.S., but my mom is from Chile. We have like such an interesting dynamic. I come from a Jewish family. She comes from a Muslim family. We have like culture just like baked into our lives.
Yeah, into your relationship.
And we love it. We love it. And so for us, like thinking about moving to another country and be able to absorb and take in their culture, it's honestly the thing that like keeps us going in life. We just love it so much. So when we had the opportunity to find a place that could be warm year round, that could be centrally located between both our families in Turkey and the US, that could culturally, have a huge interesting impact.
There's
in our
always
life.
people passing through Majorca. I feel like
Yeah.
I would say
You know?
10% of the books I read in my lifetime are set in Majorca, right? It's such a like
Yes,
lovely,
it's
yeah,
absolutely stunning and picturesque, and
yeah,
you know, and yeah, you know, it's total paradise there, living, you know, basically a Mediterranean life, and you know, and do so while also saving money, because it's like 25% cheaper to live in Mallorca than it is in New York City. So long as we continue to earn, you know, US dollars, it's the new like American dream. I mean, I've seen a lot of like TikToks and Instagram, you know, reels about that. And, you know, and so it's something that we deeply desire, and we're hoping to make happen now in April. And
beautiful.
yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'll report back, you know, a few years from now, see if it all, you know, panned out the way we had dreamed it would.
And I'm sure if it does, I'm sure it'll go great. And it'll introduce new possibilities, right? Because that's one piece of this is like, even to extrapolate this from like your personal story, is defining what's valuable to you. Like this new American dream is super desirable, I think, for a lot of the creative professionals that we've encountered in our lives. Is like, yeah, we know that our creativity is dependent on input, right? And being able to experience as much of life as possible. And so kind of allowing that to drive you forward and help co-create some of the dreams you have. Yeah, when you get to Mallorca, we don't know who you're going to meet, Adam, or what the next chapter will be, right? Like that's the fun of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, that's the thing is I never, you know, just like I've designed, you know, my life and my, you know, career, I also believe those are ever evolving things. You know, they aren't stagnant. They change with time, and you achieve one goal and then you create a new one. And so I'm a big believer in that, and we'll see where life will take us.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit more about your business, right? And how, you know, especially with the current hiring landscape, right? Is I think some companies took the template from last year, all the bad press, and was like, oh, we can't lay off people around the holidays. Let's wait till the first week of January. So obviously in the news cycle right now, we're seeing the market, take on a lot of fantastic talent, right? And so from your perspective, and kind of the conversations you were having that even led you to this pivot, what's going wrong in that process? How are we finding new homes for great talent in the market, and what wasn't working that you saw an opportunity to come in and give a new approach to?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess I can speak to the market today, and then I can talk about the approach afterwards. You know, what we're seeing today, I think, is a combination of things. You know, one is that we were at all-time highs in terms of the stock market, right? Companies had lots of money to spend. They started to excessively hire, and I think that maybe some of them got a little bit ahead of themselves. So we're seeing a bit of what a lot of people are calling in the industry a right-sizing of teams. You know, to some degree, maybe the industries haven't been as big as we thought they were. Maybe there was some overhiring happening. So I think there's a bit of that. I also think there's a bit of fear. And so, you know, that combination, you know, definitely is leading to, unfortunately, a lot of layoffs. That's not to say these aren't incredibly talented people that they're laying off. I do see that also as an opportunity. You know, a lot of times when these things happen, you know, I feel like a lot of the best companies are born out of these like recessionary periods. And I know they're not like calling this a recession, but God damn it, it feels like a recession. You know,
we feel a contraction. We feel the pricing.
Tech industry
and creative,
is not
right?
out of the woods.
Tech
and creative. Not out of the woods.
Which the tech industry has fueled the growth of the creative industry as well, right? And I used to work in in high-end real estate, and it was similar to, is like, I always call they're like leech industries, right? Like they balloon because of the core industry, which for, I would say, the entire West Coast is tech.
Yep.
And and we've tried to put that everywhere else as well. So yeah, every industry has kind of this trickle effect. And I'm with you. I see it as an opportunity too. I think to myself, God, I hope these, tens of thousands, incredibly smart individuals aren't just running to the next like safe haven. I hope there's an opportunity to pause here and go, well, what else can I make? How can I make this world better? And I like, that's what gets me excited, right? I'm like, there's some really fucking smart people in the market right now. Like this is exciting. Yeah.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. That's the part that I'm also hopeful for, is the innovation that will come out of this, which will lead to more jobs, eventually. But that's not to discount like that there are a lot of people losing their jobs right now, and the market continues to have struggles. I mean, just from last month to this month alone, just by doing a simple calculation through layoffs.fyi, which tracks layoffs in the tech industry, there was about 4,000 layoffs in December as compared to January, which had about 10,000 layoffs. And I think there was like over 100,000 last year. So it's, it's still not like the prettiest picture out there.
Yeah.
But I think that things will start to turn around. Eventually, those companies, while they did a lot of layoffs, may have overcorrected. And I think that there's still a lot of innovation to be done, especially with the rise of AI. Companies need teams to go build these things, and they're not going to build themselves. And so I think eventually we'll start to see a right sizing of those teams in an appropriate way, not such a dramatic one. So yeah, I'm hopeful for that. In regards to recruiting, it is an age-old industry, just like sales or marketing. Recruiting is just never gonna go away. It is just, it's been there through all of it. But that doesn't mean it doesn't come with a lot of cobwebs and a lot of frankly bad reputations and
outdated models,
right? I mean, what better industry to honestly get disrupted than recruiting? It's like really it's really old and stodgy. And so I fell into this opportunity where we were operating as a studio, building all those apps and websites and experiences like I had mentioned before. But, pandemic hit, a lot of our client budgets started to go away. A lot of our clients started to say, hey, we don't need the whole team right now. Can we keep a few individuals on board? We said yes, because we had no other choice. And we're like, you know what? This is actually an interesting model. Why don't we try staff augmentation? Whenever I worked in the agency world, everyone always turned their nose up to staff augmentation. It was like, oh, you're not the agency of record. And, and I was like, oh, okay, I don't get it, but sure. And
it's still smart people solving problems in a,
or even recruiting, as a service. It was always like kind of looked down upon. And I was like, this is very interesting. And so I said, you know what, why don't we like lean into this? Why don't we at least start offering staff augmentation services to companies? Because we have a great roster of talent. We can help place these awesome people with folks, and we can make a little bit of money, and they can get a job, and everybody's going to be really happy, and give the companies the flexibility to go do this. And we started to advertise it. One client led to the next, which led to the next, led to the next. And it turns out it's a really good business model, right? And but with that business model, you have to take great care, right? Because, there can be a lot of casualties easily made along the way. That can be with the talent themselves, who feels like they're not getting a fair end of this bargain in terms of their compensation, right? Or that they're not being treated well, or not being taken care of, or not being paid attention to, or being
heard.
ghosted,
Their needs are being ignored.
Exactly. And then on the other side, clients equally, may feel like they're not getting the right amount of attention. They're not getting high quality candidates. They're not able to find talent fast enough, and frankly are paying a lot of money to recruiters to go and do the work that they do, and may lose out on big opportunities. And so I thought, all right, well, this feels like an industry that could easily, be changed if we just make a few tweaks. And on the talent side, what we do is we made sure that we acted like professionals. We always got back to people. We always gave them thoughts and feedback about their candidacy and where they are in the process, that we were honest with them, that we treated them with respect, that we listened to some of their needs, and the things that they were passionate about and looking for in their next opportunities. And then second was that we would actually give them real feedback. Every single person that applies to a role with us will get some sort of feedback. At the earliest stages, they'll get a few articles that will help direct them and guide them, because we can't give personalized feedback to every single person.
Right.
Some people need a lot of work.
There's some best practices, right? To just kind of prep. And then as your time investment goes up, your coaching investment, your personal investment goes up, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And so, if we ran a career coaching business and charged money for it, then we'd probably spend all our time and attention on the earliest stage candidates.
Right.
Because they would need the most work. Right. But since we don't run a career coaching business, we run a staffing recruiting business, our incentive is to provide the best quality talent to our partners, our clients, and also to help our talent improve so they look like the best quality candidates. So at the earliest stages, we provide some basic resources to get them started. And once they graduate into a level where they have a portfolio that they can share, they have a few experiences under their belt that they're able to talk about, then we give them a chance to interview with us. And in that interview, we're going to give them some very light feedback. We also might record a Loom and tell them, about their portfolio, give them some basic feedback about that. And if they go a step further and they have now acquired more experience, or they've built a better portfolio, and they come back to us, they're going to get a portfolio interview where they'll be able to present their case studies to us. We'll walk through it with them. And at the end of that presentation, we will also give them direct feedback and spend half an hour going through it with them and talking about ways that they can improve their chances of getting the role or a role in general. And we do this at no cost to any of our talent. It's completely free. It's a value add to them, but it's also a value add to our clients, and thus a great benefit for us on the back end, because everybody wins, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just good. It's doing good, but it's just good business.
Well, and the process sounds transformative, right? And it's also about this value of connection, right? Is having this one-on-one attention at the various stages transforms this individual, right? Whether you place them in this role or not, or the one that they're gunning for, either way, they're changed through the process. And I think that's something that creatives look for in general, right? They want to be transformed through the work. And if the work in this instance is becoming the best version of themselves to land one of these dream roles, that's it, right? That's what they're seeking, and they're getting it even through something that maybe hasn't crossed their mind, like the recruitment process. That, you can kind of view it as something that you don't want to deal with, but you can also view it as something that could change you for the better, right?
Yeah, and I think that there's long been this negative relationship with recruiters, because they pester you, they bother you, they don't treat you with any kind of care or professionalism. And but the truth is, recruiters should be your best friend in the job hunt. At the end of the day, they are likely going to be the gatekeepers for an opportunity. Sometimes outside recruiters are that. Sometimes it's internal recruiters in the company. But they're going to be your biggest advocate, because they're incentivized by money to actually bring you into the company. The question is, are they being incentivized for the right reasons and in the right way? And I think that has become, kind of a central issue when it comes to outside recruitment firms who focus purely on contingency relationships. While certainly they're equally incentivized that, closing the deal the fastest is like going to be great. But when you only get paid if you're successful, right, then you don't really care about the time that you spend with an individual. You're just trying to throw as many candidates as at the wall and see who sticks. But when you're paid a little bit up front, right, as a guarantee, then you're going to be committed to that project. You want to do a good job. It incentivizes a longer term relationship beyond this project with a client, because if you do a bad job and you burn the client and they've had to pay for it, right, they're going to be really upset with you. Versus if
there's some consequences here.
Yeah, there's consequences. It puts,
it's your
it puts
relationships.
stake in the game. Versus if you work for free, right, as a recruiter for a client, and you do a crappy
for
job,
anyone, right? We're talking about this specifically, but for anyone, right?
You do a crappy job, well, the client's like, well, I guess we didn't really pay them anything. And then you're like, well, I guess you didn't really pay me anything. So why would I really care? I'm just going to treat this relationship like I really just don't care about it. So when you put something on the table and make it worth it for people to invest their time and energy, they're going to want to do a good job. They're going to want to invest in a long-term relationship from both sides. And that, I think, actually really benefits the recruiter talent relationship, because then they're not going to be discarded right away, right? Just because they didn't check a few boxes, right? For us, we see those boxes being unchecked as an opportunity for our talent to grow and learn and polish that rough diamond.
At least they know what the boxes are, right? Instead of this like wild guessing game of like, at least we know what the boxes are, and we can invest some time and energy there. Yeah,
exactly. And it's for us, it is table stakes. The two things that make us distinct are that we really know our business super well. We're experts in the UX industry, meaning UX, UI designers, product managers, product designers, UX researchers, product managers, and design ops professionals. Those are like the core groups that we service, and we only focus on those. So we're experts in that, and we give feedback throughout the process to help people grow. That is our special secret sauce that no one else is doing, no one else is willing to do. You know why? It's because you don't make as much margin when you do that, right? Yeah. But that's okay. Yeah. We will sacrifice on the business margin that we're able to make to provide a higher quality service and build longer term relationships and help service the industry better.
And you've walked the walk. I think that's an important piece, maybe that we can kind of just chat here to wrap up, is that there's this, we trust people who've done it before, right? And so I think there's this proliferation, or there can be this dissatisfaction, right? When you are in a role and you have someone who's hired into the C-suite or at the director level or whatever, who's never done the job that you're doing, right? And that's not to say people can't give advice on a role they've never been in, right? But I think we all know and value and trust like the mentor that has walked that path before us, right? And I think that that's something that you offer in your relationships, is like, you've done it. You've been in these roles. You've been in those interviews yourselves on both sides. You've interviewed talent. You've been the talent being interviewed. And so that's why your feedback is so valuable to folks that walk through your door.
Absolutely. And that's why we specialize in what we do. If we serviced every industry under the sun, like a lot of creative staffing firms will do, then I don't think that we could spend all the time and attention with our candidates to advise them in the best way possible. So, when a recruiter comes and joins our team, they spend the first 3 months training with us and learning everything there is to know about becoming a UX designer. We kind of put them through our own little boot camp about it. And in addition to learning some of our processes and tools that we use and how we do things here, which is also, it's in and of itself a learning curve because we do things a little differently. But since we do that, the talent that we work with and our clients supremely benefit because we have deep knowledge and expertise we speak their language, we've walked in their shoes before, and can help them both grow and help our clients find the best possible talent for their teams, because, you know, we play almost an advisory role to them.
Yeah. Yeah. You're a partner in that process. Well, thank you, Adam. This was a fantastic conversation. I appreciate you, giving us insights into how you design your life, how that kind of trickles out into your recruitment business. And it's been fun just sort of talking about this process of letting the next move unfold, right? Is like designing this overarching vision, but then letting your curiosities and your conversations and your collaborations unlock new possibilities for you.
Thanks so much, Dania. I really appreciate you having me.